There we go. So this session will be recorded and will exist on YouTube as well with the slides just as an ongoing resource. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, for being here. My name is Ruben Mercado, and the session today is our part of our Career Catalyst series, Strategies for Career Growth. So you've probably seen throughout our social media, throughout some of our marketing, this series that we've had ongoing, Career Catalyst. This is a new initiative that we've been undertaking, strategies, advice related to career development and career growth for students as well as professionals. So today's session was intended for early career professionals, people within the first year to 5 years of their career. If that doesn't directly apply to you, we still want you here. Still glad that you're here. Think the content and discussion is still going to be really valuable. But one of our big initiatives at SHIP on the national level this year is continued ongoing support and professional development for our professional members. So on that note, the session will also have a survey afterwards. So please fill that out so that we can plan and provide content that you find engaging and relevant to your own careers. But here's a quick rundown of what to expect in terms of the content today. We're talking a little bit about goal setting and mapping out your career growth. We're talking a little bit about taking inventory of your own strengths and how to use that to articulate your experience and your skill sets, and how to have strategic conversations with key people like your managers and mentors, and just staying sharp on those skills, just opportunities to kind of gain maybe some more knowledge, some more networking opportunities through just staying sharp and staying involved. And then we'll have some time for some group discussion and some questions. Here's a little bit about me. I am the Career and Leadership Development Program Manager for SHIP. I work for our national office. So I've been fortunate to be here a little over a year and a half. And I do programming and content and sessions and support related to things like this, related to career development, leadership development. I'm a certified Gallup Strengths Coach. So I've gotten to lead some sessions with different chapters on that topic. If that would be of interest, would love to connect there as well. I attended the University of Texas at San Antonio, go Roadrunners. Also worked there for a considerable amount of time in the engineering school. And then I got my master's degree at Texas State University. So any Texas folks on the call, happy you're here. Good to connect. And yeah, so I've got a lot of experience in working with recruiters and hiring managers, and on the early career front. So a lot of this content and a lot of things that I talk about today are things that I've learned through the duration of my career, working with people as they're starting out and in the first couple of years of their journey. And then these are some of my other hobbies. So running, training for a marathon. I like hiking. I like being outside. I like concerts, coffee, food. So anything that you all have a mutual interest in, I'm happy to connect on that as well. But okay, getting into some of the meat of the presentation, I wanted to spend the first little bit talking about goal setting. So, oh, and before I do that, also my colleague Susan Arnold Christian is here as well. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us today. Susan is helping me out with the chat. So if you have questions, if you have things that you want to share, Susan's keeping an eye on that and can respond. And then just like let me know about it too when we get to some of the more open discussion portions. So Susan's also a great person to know, has been at SHIP and is really valuable and passionate on working with professional members as well. So thank you so much, Susan, for joining us today. And yeah, we're going to get a little bit into goal setting. So the way I structured this, we've got a couple of slides just on kind of a loose guideline on how you should be thinking about things as your career progresses, and some suggestions on just kind of coming up with your strategies, some suggestions on how you should be thinking about things and at which point in your career. These are, of course, suggestions and guidelines. So this is vouched by just things that I've learned and just work that I've done with people a little bit further along in their careers. But as anything, it's pretty customizable. So that's, none of these are hard and fast rules, but a helpful framework for you to suggest and kind of come up with a structured game plan if you don't already have something like that in place. But in your first year of your career, for anybody who might be in their first year, this is where you're learning. So congratulations, you made it, you finished school, you got the job, and you're just identifying the potential areas for growth at your current role, learning a little bit about like what's expected of you, and being able to identify and research just maybe the organizational structure at your work. Of course, like potential growth areas at your current role. So it's a little early for you to be looking at other opportunities or be applying to like other jobs. The industry standard that I've typically seen are for those entry level roles, people typically stay around 2 to 4 years. So be anticipating for that and just looking for once you've kind of got your skill set down within those first couple months and you feel like you understand your role pretty well, go ahead and already start thinking about other things that you could be doing. What promotion or career growth opportunity at your current role might look like, and just how to talk to your manager about those things. We'll spend some time talking about specifically working with managers a little bit later on, but also identifying and researching professional organizations. Um, SHIP is a great one. Obviously, anybody here is already involved, and we've got a large national presence. If you are involved with a local professional chapter, there's opportunities to engage in our different regional levels as well. For those of you who may not be familiar, so SHIP is divided into 7 regions, and they all have their own perspective leadership teams and different events and networking opportunities and things like that. So that's a good thing to look at. But outside of SHIP, there's also, I mean, there's a ton of great like partner organizations that we work with regularly. There's also a lot of industry specific ones. So you're probably familiar with a lot of them from your time at school, but some of those like ASME, ASCE, the Biomedical Engineering Society, any of those, they have large national conferences and national presence as well. So spend some time looking to see like what involvement opportunities they have at the professional level as well, and maybe their structure in terms of like a volunteer leadership board, things like that, just to get an idea of like ways that you can plug in and get an idea of what your company might support in terms of you attending. A lot of companies, I would say more often than not, are very supportive of their employees participating in opportunities like that because it's really a value add for them. If you are advancing in your career and you're getting involved in these nationally known, nationally reputable organizations, it reflects well on them as well. So you'd be surprised at what they might be able to offer in terms of course, like time, but like allowing you to attend meetings virtually and things of that nature. But maybe there's opportunities for some funding support for you to attend a national or regional conference, or for any training that you might need to do related to those roles. You'd be surprised what you could get if you just ask for it. So just spend some time looking at that. And then also in that first year, of course, networking regularly. So I've found that people within the first couple of years of their professional career, they get the first job and they kind of think, oh, okay, I've made it. Like this is good. But always be thinking ahead, always have a plan. And part of that is always be networking. Look for as many chances as you can to connect with people at your organization. Set up informational interviews, attend coffee chats. If there's any kind of like happy hours or kind of social thing, maybe they've got like, maybe you're athletic, maybe they've got like a softball league or something like that. See about getting involved in anything like that, just to meet people in a more casual setting, learn more about what they do, and learn about any opportunities to get more involved and things like that. Um, of course, like updating your profile and your resume and things like that. This is crucial really early on because when you've been somewhere for 6 months, a lot can happen in 6 months. So you may sit down one day to say, oh, I probably should update my resume, and be thinking, what exactly did I do? What have I been doing the first couple months? So just stay on top of that. Just be updating your resume pretty regularly, and then identifying people in aspirational roles. So by that I mean people that maybe you're in a managerial position or some kind of director position a little bit further along, and you can say, hey, that's where I want to get to in my career. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do, how I potentially could get there? And then identifying like mentor opportunities related to that as well. So we'll talk a little bit about mentoring specifically later, but spend some time looking for people at your organization that maybe could serve in that role for you. And then, so that's the first year, maybe the first 2 years or so. But this is when you're about 3 years in. Uh, um, just some of the things that you want to be thinking about, some of the things that maybe you want to be targeting, but kind of reassessing your current role. So just taking inventory of how it's going. Am I still happy? Do I want to move on to something else? and just kind of like knowing by that point what is next for you. And that can vary a lot from person to person. If you're at a large company with a lot of different locations, there's probably a chance for you to transfer somewhere or to gain some more experience on a different team. If you're at a smaller organization, maybe you do need to think about what's next in terms of like if you're applying to different companies, who's hiring in your area, where do you want to be, and thinking about things like that. I also have a bullet point on individual contributor versus manager. That's an important distinction to make early on because there are different career growth tracks. And oftentimes, the advancement in a career could mean a more managerial responsibility. And that comes with its own pros and opportunities, but also sometimes some challenges. So maybe a couple of years in, you think, I don't know that I necessarily want to supervise people and just deal with like, all the things that come with that, like conflicts or just like if somebody is giving you a hard time, things like that. But you don't have to be in a managerial supervisory role to advance in your career. There's a lot of chances for you to continue growing, continue getting raises, things like that, and still be a more individual contributor basis. So that's one of the things that I would just be thinking about and doing some research about, and just knowing if that's something that you want for yourself. Also, by about that third year, you want to be striving for pretty active membership and maybe leadership roles in those professional organizations that you spent the first little bit of your career doing research into. So, I just using SHIP as an example, I mentioned that we've got our regional leaders, and they do great work. There's also a wide range of professional chapters. So maybe by that point, you're striving to be the marketing chair or the president of even of one of those organizations. Just kind of build that into your own growth and your own plan, that by that third year it would be really beneficial for you to be looking at opportunities like that, and at least striving for opportunities like that. And then yeah, just identifying some of those leadership roles. I think at this point, I mean, just as you're ongoing the whole time, but having clear metrics on your accomplishments. When you're 3 years in, by now for sure you've delivered on a project and can point to some specific metrics on how you saved the company money, or just like what the benefit was in terms of like what you contributed specifically within your role. So just be keeping track of that. That's one of those things that can be a lot harder to think of after the fact, when you don't have access to the same reports and the same data and the same numbers and things like that. So just kind of have some clear metrics and some ideas on the different accomplishments. And then also just like assessing your own location, if there's opportunities to move, if there's opportunities to transfer. This is, if you're at a large organization, knowing exactly where the work is, but if you are looking at different companies, things like that, just having an idea of who the players are in your industry and where you might have an opportunity to move into or transfer to. That's within the first 3 years. By year five, just have as clear as possible of an idea of where you want to be. By year five, you should be advancing. You should be looking to advance. You should be, if not already in a different job title or classification from your first year, really actively trying for that. So be actively applying, and then just like giving yourself grace and some flexibility room. If it, like I mentioned at the start, if it doesn't go exactly this way, this is more of a framework. So just if maybe you're what you feel is like a little behind schedule, kind of doing some self-assessment on maybe why that is, and maybe revisiting if you do need to make some adjustments. If like maybe let's say you're really focused on staying local to your area, maybe it would be a good career move to go elsewhere. Um, and just what that might look like. And then also by year five, you should have a pretty strong network locally as well as potentially nationally if you've gotten pretty involved on some of those professional organizations, some of those ones that we talked about, like SHIP or any of the industry specific ones or any of our partner organizations. So just be looking for advancement in new roles and new opportunities by that point. So and now we'll delve into some content on just like taking inventory of your own strengths and setting goals related to those, and setting goals related to your ongoing professional development. and some of the different tools and methodologies you can use to do that. So knowing your strengths can help give you a solid foundation for a lot of these things. It can help frame some of the conversations that you might be having with managers and mentors. It'll give you a good idea of what you're naturally good and talented at. And so you'll be able to identify some specific, like maybe involvement or volunteer or leadership opportunities based on those things. So there's different inventories and different like tools you can use for these things. I just wrote out a list of some of the suggestions. I mentioned Gallup Strengths, so that's colloquially called Strengths Finder, is how you might have been called it before. But that's a helpful tool. A lot of Fortune 500 companies, that's a metric and a tool that they use. So it's good to be familiar with. High Five Strengths is a similar assessment that I've also led some workshops on. It's pretty similar to Gallup. It is a free version, so I have that linked here. That's what that QR code is, because it's a quick assessment that you can do that'll give you kind of your top 5 naturally occurring strengths and just give you like a solid foundation that you're able to articulate in like interviews and conversations with your mentors and things like that. And potentially, like if you do spend some time in some of these things, um, well, let me finish talking about the rest. But disc assessment is another big one that we use here at Ship. So that'll give you kind of your naturally occurring working styles. It's 4 quadrants, and it'll tell you where you spend most of your time in terms of your own strengths and just your own working styles. And then Myers-Briggs is of course a big one. You probably have taken it. You've probably at least heard about it within your organization or maybe at school. But just some options to look into. These are things that potentially, I mentioned professional development opportunities and conversations to have with your manager. Um, Maybe you can get it paid for to take it. I know the full Gallup Strengths exam is not not expensive, but you do have to pay for it. But maybe that's something that you could pitch to your team in terms of like a good group activity, like a good team building activity, and also gives you a solid foundation. If there's chances for you to get certified as a leader or a assessor in any of these, those are really good professional development opportunities that look good on a resume. I was very fortunate here at Chip to have gotten to do the Gallup Strengths Coach certification. So just something that's helped me in my own like presentation skills and things like that. So again, you never know if you don't ask. So do some research into some of these so that it can help give you a solid foundation for your strengths, but also maybe something that you want to get more involved in and learn more about. So that's some of the strengths assessment, and then using those to create SMART goals. So you, I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with this term, but maybe if you're not, when you're doing that goal setting, when you're identifying your 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year plans, being able to set goals that are specific, that are measurable, that you have some clear metrics and some data on, that are, of course, attainable and realistic, and then as well as relevant to your career and time bound. So the time bound part comes in handy from just you're setting 1 year plan, 3 year plans, 5 year plans. So just you want to set kind of clear deadlines for yourself on when you should be reaching these things. And yeah, and then just keeping a detailed notes and journals as you're progressing through your career related to your goals. So once you've identified what your goals are at these different stages of your career, don't just forget about them. Be keeping track and knowing what to expect within that 6 months, within the 9 month frame, within the year frame. So just keep detailed notes and know where you're at in your career, and adjust as necessary. So build some leeway, some flexibility into some of those as well as much as possible. So that's the goal setting and some of the strengths inventory. I'm going to get more into some of the relationship building stuff and some of the like networking and just ways to talk to your manager, peers, mentors, things like that. Before I get into that, I want to take a little pause here and just see if there's any questions on any of the first parts. I don't know if anything came in through the chat or if anybody wants to hop on mic.
Yeah, great content. Thanks everybody for joining in. We did have some questions in the chat. I encourage you, if you're in a place where you can engage in the chat. I don't know about you guys. I sit on lots of Zoom meetings. The more you engage, the more fun it is, I promise. So
Oh yeah.
Ruben, we did have a couple of questions in here, and I just want to throw out a couple of announcements that I put in there about if you are a SHIP member who's a professional member at large, we do have some community building things for you. So I put those
Yes.
in the chat. And I also, as you were talking about those amazing tools for strengths assessment and skills assessment, we also have done a lot of work with SHIP with the Latino Career Assessment team, and I do still have a few free codes. So if anyone would like to take that career assessment, we have done a lot of programming with them. I've been very impressed with the content that you get in your report, and they also offer a lot of free programs that you can join in. So if you would like a free code to do that, give me a thumbs up and I will send you a private message and get your email and send you that code right now today. So questions in the chat. Ruben, on networking, which may be coming up here in this conversation, so maybe it's a theme that you're going to talk about next, but should I focus more on networking inside my organization or outside my organization? Another question that came up is, what does the group think of contract jobs through staffing agencies? And I think those were the two main questions. So participants, feel free to chime in on those responses in the chat. And then Ruben, I don't know if you want to address either one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for just sharing that in the chat. I absolutely encourage you to look at what Susan's posted and the different career assessments and things like that. But yeah, so on the networking, I'll talk a little bit about this, but both they're not mutually exclusive. I think like when you're first starting out, it's easier to focus on networking within your organization, like at least knowing who the players are at your company, like who is on your team, like what their backgrounds are. Because the key thing that I always tell people on networking is you never know. You never know in 5 years, like who's going to be your boss, who's going to be working with you on a project, even if they move on to a different company or things like that. So I think at first it's good to focus on like just knowing the people directly around you. But as you get more comfortable, as you're looking to branch out, um, within that first like 6 months to a year, I would say, when people are getting when you're doing that research into different like professional organizations and things like that, I think then you can kind of shift into knowing like people outside of the organization really well and knowing like maybe people locally. But yeah, definitely I would say to start out like knowing just like the people within your organization. But and these don't have to be mutually exclusive. Like you definitely can be doing both at the same time if you find yourself to be a very extroverted person who's like naturally makes those connections, it's a good way to do that. Um, but yeah, that's a really good question and a really good way to think about it. In terms of contract jobs through staffing agencies, I don't have a lot of familiarity with that. I definitely know people that have done it and know people that have been successful in that being their way to get their foot in the door. um at that point, like even if you're on a contract basis, like just working in the organization, you become a known entity, even if it's not like a full-time like guaranteed opportunity quite yet. But it can be a really good networking opportunity as well, a good way to just get your foot in the door. Definitely do some research on like the staffing agencies and things like that. That's one of the things that I do because there are unfortunately a lot of like scams and things like that. Like a lot of times I'll get text messages like, I'm so and so at such and such agency, and I'll be like, this doesn't sound legit. So just like do a quick Google search, do a LinkedIn search. That's one of the first places I'll look for whatever organization or staffing agency they say they're with on LinkedIn and see if there's any reviews. Check some of those other sites like Indeed and Glassdoor, and some of those there oftentimes they will have reviews if it's like a reputable company, if it's something worth the time. So look into all that before giving over like your personal information. But I think it can be a helpful way to at least get your foot in the door and start building your network at maybe a company that you have an interest in off the bat. So really good question. Thank you all so much for sharing that. Okay, that was good. I'm glad to see people engaged in the chat and people asking good questions. I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about like networking and talking to the different stakeholders that will be involved in your career growth. So talking to managers, have your 1 to 5 year plans thought through and try to build in some time talking about those things. There will obviously there will be times where you're having your regular check-in meetings with your managers and it's kind of just nose down, we got to get some stuff done. There's a lot of projects, there's a lot of things going on. But in a lot of times there are, I don't want to call it downtime, but maybe time that you can spend a little bit more time, especially after a couple of months, talking through, hey, I've been here a little while. I was thinking about just like my future and my long-term growth and things like that. And I was hoping to get some feedback. I was hoping to see if there are chances for me to get involved in some different things that might give me a varied and diversified skill set. Um, and your managers should be supportive of that. A lot of times when I'm talking to early career professionals, they're kind of hesitant or scared to talk to their managers about some of this stuff because they think it's going to set off alarm bells that like, oh no, they want to leave, like they're looking at other jobs and things like that. So you you of course want to be like careful how you're presenting it, but your manager should be invested in your career growth and in you learning new things and getting to do different things. And if they're not, that could be a sign that like maybe, within the first couple of years here, maybe it's time for me to look somewhere else or like on another team or things like that. But you should be able to have like frank, transparent conversations with your manager and them being supportive of things like this. I mentioned with the component that's like getting involved with professional organizations and things like that, you advancing in your career and getting to take on more opportunities and things like that is valuable to the organization that you're working at. And it also reflects well on your manager. So that's a good way to frame it as well when you're talking through these things. Your manager can say like, that they were able to help you in your career growth and they were able to help you get to that next level. So try to carve out some time in your one-on-ones and definitely in your performance reviews. Industry standard, I typically see that most organizations have formal performance reviews every 6 months or so, at least some kind of structured conversation around those things like that. And this is the perfect time to be thinking about those things. So going back to those 1, 3, and 5 year plans and that goal setting that you've been doing, just keep track of where you're at when you're having that conversation with your manager so you can reference some specific things like, I just completed my first year. I was hoping at this stage of my career and my time in this company to have been able to achieve this. Do you think there are chances for me to do that? And what might that look like? So, and then just keeping documentation of everything, for positive and for for potentially negative reasons, but just just keeping track and keeping documentation of all the conversations and all the reviews that you've had with your manager so you can point to it later on and say, well, in my 1 year review I had all these high marks and things have been going really well. So using that as supporting documentation for things like being able to articulate why you're deserving of potentially a promotion or a raise and things like that. So just making sure that you save copies of everything and keeping documentation of it. And then asking for just like regular honest feedback, even outside of the formal one-on-one settings. Just being able to track um, if there's a chance every couple of months or just even like in passing or just to sit down casual talk with your manager, asking for feedback on how you did on a certain project or a certain deliverable, and just keeping track of that as well. And then looking for other like meetings and volunteers, especially at larger or smaller companies, there may be like a special initiative. Maybe they're implementing a new software for keeping track of benefits or performance reviews or things like that. Maybe they are looking into I mean, with SHIP, we regularly do presentations to different company employee resource groups. So maybe there's a chance to be like on a committee related to that. So just asking your manager if there's chances for you to do that and looking for ways that you can volunteer your time, especially if you've already spent some time at the company after that first like year or two, maybe you feel pretty comfortable and feel like you got your specific responsibilities related to your role um, pretty figured out. So you have a little bit more capacity and bandwidth to volunteer for some of these other things that can help open doors down the road. So that's how you should be framing those conversations with your manager, and then just like networking regularly, like I mentioned. So There was that really good question in the chat about if you should focus within your organization or outside of it. But like I mentioned, definitely within that first little bit within your organization, just looking to connect with everybody and at least get to know who everybody at your company is, and them knowing who you are in a positive way, so that they can, if one of those volunteer opportunities or an advancement opportunity comes up, um, they'd be able to think of you and maybe recommend you for something that would be a good fit, something that would be a good value add to the organization as well as for yourself. So just remember always that networking should be relational and not transactional. So by that I mean this is just like building connections with people. It's not it shouldn't feel like an unnatural or like super formal thing. I would say you're just keeping touch with colleagues, with former classmates, with people that maybe you were really involved with your ship chapter at your school. Just being able to stay connected with those people and knowing what's going on, so that it can be mutually beneficial, so that it's not just you after 3 years sending a LinkedIn message to somebody you haven't seen since school and saying like, "Hey, I saw y'all are hiring. Can you get my name in there?" You should have talked to them at some other point besides that 3 year mark and be able to help them as well. So just like always looking for ways that you can also support people and kind of bring people along. So just attending different networking events in your area can be really beneficial as well. Look to see if you've got a professional organization for SHIP in your city or any regional events that might be going on, any like leadership type conferences. Looking for location based career groups. So I'm located in San Antonio, Texas, and we've got it's a fairly large city, so we've got a lot of chances to get involved with different groups. And there's, I know this week there's a big like startup week happening that has different open networking events. So look to see if in your city or in your wherever you're located or even close by, if there's chances to attend things like that. And just have your business cards, have your LinkedIn up to date and things like that, and just connecting with people through those ways. And then that last bullet point, so just utilizing like LinkedIn and other virtual platforms as well. If you can be more of an introverted person, maybe the idea of like regularly attending happy hours and networking events and things like that can be a little daunting. So you don't have to do that stuff all the time. LinkedIn is still a really valuable resource. Um, I've got some information a little bit later here in the presentation on how to keep that up to date as possible. But use that to connect with people as well and see who's hiring, which companies are growing, see like who's big in your area, and just following along and seeing who you might be able to connect with through that platform as well. Um, let me. Oh, okay. I'll spend a little bit more time talking specifically about LinkedIn later, but I've mentioned mentoring a couple of times as well. You should have a mentor. It's important for your career growth. It's important for your personal growth. Um, and ideally, you should be looking for somebody who does not supervise you so that you can have like very honest conversations with them and they can give you like pretty honest feedback on how you're doing, how to navigate, like if you're needing to have some kind of like difficult conversation with your supervisor, they can help advise you on that. And it can be beneficial to find somebody who's at least like a level above the level that you're trying to get to, because they've already got some experience, they've already got some years under their belt. They can give you some pretty specific advice for your own industry and maybe your own company. So look to see who you can connect with through those areas. So that's within that first year when you're researching the company, when you're doing your networking around. That's how you can kind of look to see who might be a good fit mentor wise, and just asking them. So I think people will like psych themselves out a little bit on things like this because they can feel really formal or it can feel, I don't know, like maybe weird. But mentoring is important, and there's nothing wrong with just like sending an email, or just like if you have a pretty good relationship and you're able to like stop by their desk or talk to them at some event or something like that, just saying like, "Hey, you're in a position that I would like to be in a couple of years, and I was hoping that we could spend some time together, and you could give me some mentoring advice. You could give me some feedback on how I'm doing, some advice, things like that." So just always be looking for somebody like that, and always asking for really honest feedback and improvement areas, and taking good notes on those, So if your mentor is telling you you should do something and I told you a couple times and you haven't really been doing it, they want to stay engaged as well. So they want to feel like what they're telling you is actually like beneficial. So just looking to actually implement the things that they're suggesting and the ideas that they have for your career growth. And then I also put looking for opportunities to mentor others. Once you're a little established in your career, once you've been through the first couple of years, that can be a good way to give back. And it can be a really helpful learning experience for you as well. Those of you who maybe have managerial and supervisory aspirations, this can be a good practice run because you're like kind of directly working with somebody one on one and helping them. Like maybe it's a student, maybe it's a current undergraduate student at the university that you graduated from, and you're still doing stuff with the SHIP chapter there, or through a professional organization. Just kind of getting that experience, you might be able to learn a lot about yourself and your own interests just through doing that as well. And then just like staying sharp on your skills, making sure that you're keeping everything up to date. So I mentioned a little earlier in the presentation, just updating your resume regularly, especially if you've been at the company a year or two. It's harder to remember that stuff after the fact. So just keep track of your own specific like metrics from the different like projects and reviews and things like that that you've done from your performance reviews so that you can articulate some specific data points in your resume. You're able to say, I was able to contribute to the growth of this area by 20%, 30%, and you've got the numbers to back it up from the different outcome reports and performance reviews that you've had with your supervisor. So, and then staying active on LinkedIn. So just like as you're updating your resume, also updating your responsibilities and titles and things like that on LinkedIn and sharing what you're doing. So a lot of people can feel discouraged from doing this. Some people might feel like it's a little cringe or something like that. But it's good to share like every couple months, every couple weeks, like I was able to contribute to this project at work and this was the outcome, so that you show up on the algorithm a little bit more, like maybe recruiters or somebody is looking to fill a more advanced role and maybe you are a good fit for that. So just kind of sharing what you're doing regularly and then also following other companies within your industry or companies that you have an interest in, just seeing like what they're up to and just like any open roles that they're hiring for if you're a couple years in and you're looking for your next opportunity. And then just like commenting and staying connected with people. I didn't have a specific bullet point on this too, but something that I always encourage people when they're sending connection requests to people on LinkedIn is to include a note. So it gives you that option where you can introduce yourself and include some kind of note. Always do that so that it's not just like a random connection request and the person getting it is just like, I'm not really sure who this is. Like, why are you looking to meet with me? So just including that in your connection plan as well. And then saving your job description. So the reason I always say that is because the job that you apply to could potentially change a lot throughout the duration of your time there. So if those are the bullet points that you've got on your LinkedIn, on your resume, it may no longer be like an accurate reflection of what exactly that you're doing. So just keeping it on hand so that you can know like how your role has changed and you can articulate some of that. Maybe the way it was organized at first has grown a lot just because of the good work that you've been doing, and you're able to explain and articulate that just through having saved that. And then just revisiting your 1 to 5 year plans regularly, seeing what you aspired to and if you're on track and if maybe you need to um, come up with some new strategies, just whatever you need to do. So just like saving all of that in a regular, easily accessible place. And then practicing. So just always keep those interview skills sharp. Conduct practice interviews. So this is something really helpful that your mentor could potentially do. Just kind of going through common like behavioral interview questions and working on your presentation skills as well. So that's something that I've typically seen like as people progress in their careers, usually you'll be required to do a lot more public speaking and sharing out reports and things of that nature. So if there's opportunities for you to volunteer to do some of those things, it can be advantageous for you to do that. So just practice and kind of work on those things as you're able to. And then just always continue networking, always continue developing and refining your elevator pitch. So that's that 30 to 45-second introduction when you're at different networking events that explains like yourself and your interests and your career story. And then looking for other like community involvement opportunities. So committee involvement opportunities, I've talked about that in one of the previous slides, but just anything, any initiatives that your company has that you might be able to participate in. Um, just looking to see if you've been able to do that at that point. So, and then just other tips. So again, the organization involvement, I'm just really hammering that home. So just like any chances for you to get involved with SHIP on a national or regional or local level, or any other similar type organizations, or any ones that are directly related to your industry. And then different like upskilling opportunities. If your job offers anything in the way of professional development funding for you to take a class or attend a webinar or a series of webinars on anything related to project management or supervision or AI or anything like that. Um, Here at SHIP, we're working on some initiatives related to some of those things. Fingers crossed on some more to come pretty soon, but yeah, we're looking for ways to give some of those opportunities to our professional members as well. So stay in the loop, make sure you're following us on all of our socials for some of those things, but look to see if there's other things that your company is offering as well. And then some of those like, so I mentioned volunteering. Volunteering can also be like, it doesn't have to be like a company work thing. Maybe there's opportunities through a faith-based organization of some kind that you might have involvement in, or any like nonprofits or food banks or anything in your area. um, it's just a good thing to do. It's just something that everyone should aspire to spend like some time doing, but it could be a good way to meet people. It could be a good way to gain some additional like leadership experience or some communication experience that maybe you're not getting through your current role. So just looking to see if those are some things that you're able to do as well. Okay, I had here some space for breakout rooms and some group discussion, but we have kind of a smaller group today, so maybe we won't even do the breakout rooms. We can all just like be here and share out just some of these questions. And they're just two quick, simple ones. We've got around 15 minutes left, so a little bit of time for some discussion. If people want to share in the chat, if people want to hop on mic, whatever you want to do. But just what are some of your own immediate career goals? Maybe what do you have in mind for the next 3 to 5 years? Or we can even get in now if like there's any specific questions on anything that we've talked about today. So yeah, I'd love to hear from some of the participants. I saw that the chat has had some additional comments.
Yeah, and I'll chime in with some questions. Again, participants, feel free to help chime in on each other's questions. But there was one that I wanted to bring up to you, Ruben. How do you maintain the connections you make? What's the etiquette there? Because people forget who they met a lot of times. And then talking about keeping a journal on everything. How do you keep track of it? And then I'm going to just answer one question live here. National does not have a Slack channel for members or something like that. Now, a lot of our chapters and our regions use WhatsApp, so I'd encourage you to get connected with your chapter or your region. We can help you with that if you need to get connected with that. We don't do that just because we don't share our members' contact information out. A lot of people want to get lists of all of the SHIP members and blast you guys with
Yeah.
all kinds of promotional things, and so we try to protect that. But
Yes.
in regards to watch the news, watch what's coming up in SHIP Nation, and I'll throw the chat in there too because there's some new stuff coming for that too. Some new ways to engage with members and things that are going to be coming this next year. So Ruben, back to the two questions about how do you keep track of your wins and things, and then also how do you maintain connections that you meet?
Yeah, great questions in the chat. I'm glad to see people thinking about those things and participating. In terms of maintaining the connections that you make, um, I use LinkedIn a lot to keep track of things like that, and through a variety of ways. So I try to post fairly regularly, and I'll get likes, I'll get comments, I'll get things like that. And if it's somebody that maybe I haven't heard from in a while, I'll just shoot them a quick message and say, hey, thanks for supporting. Like it's good to hear from you. How are things going? Where are you at in your career? Things like that. So by just sharing regularly and kind of putting yourself out there, if people are reciprocating that and liking or commenting on things you're doing, That can be a natural introduction. I think also, like, if you've got specific goals, maybe related to another company, like if you know somebody that works there, like I kind of keep track of who's employed at different like organizations that maybe I have an interest in. So just like reaching out regular, not in a, I don't know, not like every week or anything, and not anything like real hiring or anything like that, but just like just keeping in touch and just like sending them support, and vice versa. So like commenting and liking on things that they're doing. Also just by staying involved in different like ongoing events. So I'm here in San Antonio, for an example, like our ship chapter, professional chapter, has been pretty active recently. So just trying to connect and go to all of those as much as my schedule will allow, and just keeping track. But I mean, it's real that you forget like who you met a lot of times, especially at large scale events. Like I mean, the Ship National Convention is massive, for example. So it can be hard to remember exactly like where you met people from. So just trying to keep notes and keep things like that. Um, a lot of times I'll also just like go back through like my history or like archive or anything on LinkedIn or any of those, just to see like a year ago I was at this event, and maybe like kind of refreshing my mind that way as well. But just keeping notes and keeping, yeah, keeping track of things like that, referring back to like old emails, like if you send an introductory email, things like that. I try to have a folder like saved with some of those things. So that can be helpful as well. But yeah, it is important to practice like good etiquette and be mindful of that, because you don't want it to be like that example I gave earlier, where you just reach out after a couple years and say, "Hey, are you hiring for anything?" But just keeping up that like genuine connection and things like that. But that's a really good question. Hopefully, I've been able to help some in giving you an idea of what to expect with that. But I'm always open to discussing more and hearing more about it. And then there was the other question on, yeah, keeping a journal of good and bad and like a brag sheet. I keep track of mine. I have saved copies of like past performance reviews. I try to do my own like goal setting every couple of months. They usually coincide with like presentations that I've done on like strengths and different things like that. But I I keep a lot of like physical copies of stuff, but I also have like folders in like my email and things like that. Um, and or through different things, like here at Ship, we've been utilizing Asana for like a lot of our project based work. So I have a little like area saved for myself as well on just like things that I want to get involved in. I mean, this is a big one today. Like we're looking to do more programming and professional development opportunities for our professional members. So I can say that this was something that we got rolling on and something that we accomplished. So just revisiting those things regularly, saving them, keeping a journal, and yeah, Susan used Asana for the example as well, and keeping a spreadsheet to track like numbers and things like that. That's the biggest piece of it, is just keeping track of any specific metrics or numbers or things like that. Like I always like to know if I hosted an event, what was the average number of attendees? If I was managing a budget, what the final numbers on any of that was. So just keeping track, because those are things that are harder to gain access to after a year or two. So I have like a master document resume that has everything listed that I can pick and choose from when I'm refining things. So those are just some strategies and some different things that I implement. Um, and I saw, yeah, getting a first job, and Susan shared the Ship Career Center, which is a really valuable resource. So if you don't already have a presence on there, please do. Please take a look. It's updated very regularly for those of you who may be attending national convention. That's something that our recruiting teams that are going to be there will be utilizing. So yeah, take a look at that resource as well. So yeah, we've got time for, yeah, staying flexible and keep learning. Yeah, that's the biggest part of one of the biggest parts of this. Honestly, I'm glad you said that in the chat here. But I'm glad you all are attending things like this, like just taking advantage of different like webinars, like free things that you might be able to attend. You never know when you're going to get a little nugget of wisdom that maybe you hadn't been thinking of before. You never know when you're going to get to meet with or connect with somebody that you didn't wouldn't have gotten a chance to otherwise. I mean, this is an event that's being done through SHIP's national organization, so we have people from all over the country on here, and maybe you don't get a chance to do that at some of the in-person events or things that you're participating in. So yeah, just being able to be flexible is really important too, because like I mentioned, it it's good to have a 1 year plan, a 3 year plan, a 5 year plan, but life happens, like especially as people are progressing through life and through their careers, different like family responsibilities and things like that come up. So give yourself grace and patience and flexibility when maybe you only got like 4 or 5 of the bullet points, and there's one that you weren't able to get to. So um, yeah, really good comment.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
How, when you're reaching out to people, say for the first time or um, again, how do you not be like annoying? Because I know that they're busy or professional, and so how do you also not sound transactional?
That's a really good question, and um, yeah, absolutely. I think the so you said when you're reaching out for the first time, or like maybe it's somebody that you haven't talked to in a while.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think when you are reaching out to somebody for the first time, if it's somebody that has a position that you're interested in for later in your career, or maybe you're a recruiter at a different company, things like that, um, I do think it's okay to say up front, like, hey, I am, you know, introducing yourself and just like, I noticed that you work for this company and I have a strong interest there. I'm hoping to just like connect and learn more about you and your role and what you do there, and like any advice that you have for getting into those types of roles. So I think being upfront for what you're looking for, and trying to make the introduction that way. But then also like when you actually make the connection, like sharing about yourself and volunteering, like is I don't know, is there anything I can support you with? Is there anything that we could like maybe collaborate on, or that I could like get involved in? So just that it's not just like you're necessarily like wanting something from them. When you're reaching out to somebody again, and maybe it's been a little while, I'll get messages from like former students and things like that, or like former coworkers, and they'll say like, I can't believe it's been however long since I graduated or since we worked together on this project, but just wanted to say hi. Just wanted to hear more about like the things you've been doing at Ship, or like some of the things, some of the initiatives that you have going on. So um yeah, I don't think it's annoying like necessarily, because that's what those platforms are there for. That's what LinkedIn is there for, is for like making those connections and keeping in touch with people. So I think just like being transparent and authentic and vulnerable is really important. I think again, just like that piece of regularly putting yourself out there and sharing what you've been doing, maybe like inviting people to things, or like an event that you're participating in, can be helpful. So yeah, I think it's just putting yourself out there, because you never know until you like try, or make an effort, or at least put it out there. And it's not always going to have like a 100% success rate. Like sometimes it could be people that are busy and maybe they don't respond right away, maybe they're not able to. But I always at least like put it out there, and then give it at least like a week or two before following up again, to seeing like if they've gotten a chance to respond yet, and at least like trying one more time to see about a response, or following up and things like that. But um, yeah, does that help at all? Like I know it could, and this is something it can vary a lot from like person to person, or just like based on the context of the relationship. But it's there's nothing wrong with just like putting yourself out there, and being transparent about what you're looking for, and offering up your support as well.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. It does answer my question.
Okay, great. Thanks for asking, and thanks for being here. We've got a little bit of time left. If anybody else has any thoughts, or like wanted to share or ask any questions that they had.
Okay, I would like to make a comment or actually I ask for a tip or something like that because that would be my first time going to the convention this
Oh,
year.
great.
And I don't know, maybe I don't know if someone can help me with like what to expect. What is something that it's a must in terms of preparing because I am in Chicago at Northeastern University, and I'm president of the chapter over there,
Oh,
and
great.
I'm trying to go with trying to get the sponsorship from the university to go to the convention. So would be very helpful. Any tip or anything like that, how to prepare and what to have in mind.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're able to participate in convention, that you're going to be there. I mean, a lot. And we have a whole session related to that at the end of this month. Susan, if you're able to put that link in the registration or in the chat. I know we've got like a kind of a know before you go national convention meeting coming up, but just some quick things. Researching as much as you can, especially if you're attending the career fair, just kind of knowing who's going to be there, and being able to like kind of come up with a game plan of who you want to talk to. This year, for anybody who's been in past years, we're doing it a little bit differently, where we have it'll be divided into two, so there'll be two groups for the career fair. So you'll have like a specific assigned time frame that you're able to go to the career fair, but just researching like what companies are going to be there ahead of time. Um, just doing what you need to in terms of like balancing your own, I would say, energy and efforts and things like that, because it's a lot. Like there's a lot of people and they're long days. So just like taking care of yourself, making sure that you're hydrated, that you're wearing like comfortable shoes and things like that, because you're going to be walking around a lot. You're going to be talking to a lot of different people. And then related to one of the questions we were just talking about, I think one of the most important parts of it is keeping track of who you talk to, because you're probably going to meet a lot of people. So I always try to get like business cards if I can, and then write a quick note on the back of it of like where I met them or like what exactly we talked about, so that when I'm doing the follow up, I know like what exactly I can reference to. Um, and then following up afterwards. So giving it maybe like a week or so after convention, after everybody's decompressed, and sending my follow up emails, LinkedIn requests, LinkedIn messages, things like that of next steps, if it's like somebody that you interviewed with or somebody that you met from a different ship chapter and things like that. That can be a good way of going about it too. But yeah, there's a lot. Just taking care of yourself really is like a key thing. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of energy. So you just want to make sure that you are not crashing and burning while you're over there, because it is kind of a marathon and not a sprint. um so that's, yeah, just with the time that we have, I wish I could say
I've
more,
thrown
but those
some
are like
links in the chat for you. So sorry to interrupt. There's the event that Ruben was talking about, getting ready to prepare to come to national convention. Also a
yes.
great opportunity to volunteer if you're planning to come. That's a great way to get connected and kind of learn about what's going on, so you can volunteer to help with the event. And then also, just a heads up, the early bird registration prices end this coming Monday. So I put that link in there as well. But there's a lot of information on the site, and I know Ruben's going to be following up with his other events that he's doing to help you all too.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so look at those registrations. Um, and we've got some we've got some other upcoming events. Everybody who showed up today, I've got your email addresses. We'll share the next event that we have planned for professional members in October. We've got some sessions next week related to interview skills for students as well as professionals. So that'll be September 16th and 17th. um, I'll include that in the follow-up as well. And then we've got a networking event on October 8th. So I'll include in my follow-up email these slides, as well as the registration links for all of those. Hope to see you at future events. Feel free to reach out to me. This is my email and my LinkedIn account as well. The interview event, the content is like kind of geared towards students, but it's both. Like we'll talk a lot about like behavioral interviews, how to research and prepare for interviews. So it definitely is like relevant and helpful for both. So but great questions. Glad to meet everyone today. Glad to have been able to connect. Thank you so much for being here, and hopefully see you at our next events. Be sure to do the survey that goes out after this to help us plan for the future. So thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to stay on here for just a second because I'm still collecting